Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 94 of the Xbox War Gamers podcast. This week, it's just me and Keo. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's not just us; it is us.
It's us. It is us. Exactly, 100%. No, that's the right attitude. Cameron is in the chat already upset. And yes, we do have Char producing tonight from the background. So thank you to them. All right, we got a pretty packed show this week. As always, we're doing the show live on Twitch. Xbox Hall of Gamers is the place to find us. Come say hi, like Bulbasaur, like Left for Legacy, who is joining live for the first time, which is great. He's going to show up in our completions list as well, with a game that's just going to haunt me forever. If you guess what it is, you don't win a prize because it's probably going to be pretty obvious. But yeah, this week we're going to talk about a lot of news. There's quite a bit of stuff happening with Embracer, with Unity, which everyone's hearing about. There's some stuff with X-Defiant. There's so much fucking stuff going on. It's kind of nuts. And we've also been playing some fucking video games, which is great as well.
Yeah, it's good.
But first, let's get into our community questions. We got one from my question asker extraordinaire here, Mr. Isaac, Logic Dad himself. Says, hey guys, what did you do more of this year? Start new games or complete games you've already started? Have you any goals to finish any games before the end of the year? Thanks for the show. Thank you for the question, Isaac. Keo, what are your thoughts? You got anything?
I've done a bit of everything. So I've actually, probably my biggest thing that I've done is I've started games that I wanted to knock out of my multiplayer backlog for a very long time.
Yep.
So stuff like Crisis 3 has been installed forever. I did the multiplayer in that. I just finished the multiplayer for Space Marine, which was this week. That's on what I've been playing. Doesn't need to be mentioned outside of that much. But yeah, so I have started a lot of games, and at the start of the year, I was like, I'm just gonna, finish everything I start, as you do.
Yeah, of course.
That's what you want to do,
go
right?
in with good intentions.
And it was good for about 2 or 3 games, and then it got out of control, and then people wanted to start new things, so I started new things. I'm like, I have that, so yeah. So it does not. I've done both. I've finished stuff that I wanted to finish, and I've started stuff that I've been wanting to start for a while. So.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at my TA 2023 summary at the moment here. And I have 107 games started. So that probably gives you an idea. To be fair, a lot of that is trash.
Okay. That's okay.
But I've been playing a lot of newer stuff that has been like Game Pass. Like just kind of looking at my list here is like, yeah, like, I played like Takenojutsu Drum Master.
Right.
I played Everspace 2. I played Octopath Traveler. I played Bard's Tale, played Loot River, Hard. Yeah, so like I've been starting a lot of stuff, but it's all been Game Pass stuff. And I've been trying to finish as much of it as I can. I think Game Pass wise, I'm pretty much anything I've started, I've finished. I think.
Right. Yeah. I've mostly started Game Pass stuff. I've started a lot of Game Pass leaving stuff this year, and I've actually done the stuff that's been manageable. So
that's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of where I started at the beginning of the year, is that like I really wanted to keep on top of the stuff leaving. And then I was like, well, actually, I'm getting through this stuff pretty quickly. Like if you got 15 days to do it and you do it in 5, what do you do for the rest of the 10? And I'm like, well, I might as well just keep working on Game Pass games that I'm interested in. So when they come up, I don't have to worry about them and I can kind of continue the cycle.
Yeah. I mean, it's been some really, really big stuff. Just looking at my list now, I finished the story in Need for Speed. Still need to do the achievements for that. I did Redfall, which is hot new this year. Oh, not hot new, but not even sizzling.
Sure.
I did the story in Borderlands 3. I was at the end of the story in The Witcher 3, I think, as well. I still need to go back and do the DLC, but then yeah, it's been really, really good. Like stuff like Ravenlock came out. I did that. Life is Strange. Heaps of stuff. So
it's been a great year for like small to medium sized games, especially on Game Pass.
Yeah.
I mean, like I'm just going through my list now. Like you said, I'm just looking at like Toem and oh god, I'm suddenly running into all the trash that I played. I got Hoa in there, Vemba.
Yep. Yeah.
Sable. Yeah, like there's been a lot of really good stuff. And like I've been doing a bit of cleanup as well. Like obviously I've like started 107 games but completed 130. So I've gone back and cleaned up backlog or had, cleaned up title updates for a good chunk of games. But a lot of those are older games. I definitely should be doing more backlog than
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, this isn't too bad. 112 started, 31 completed.
That's not bad.
That's actually pretty good. Yeah. So, and there's a bunch of UFC and all that, not WRC and stuff like that in there.
Yeah,
Because
right.
I jumped in with Cobra Todd and we just went, all right, every single racing game that we've got installed, let's just load them up and just do the multiplayer. So there's like SPK,
Yep.
all kinds of stuff. So yeah. Yeah. Oh, and I've got one multiplayer achievement left in Call of Duty Black Ops 4,
Oh, right. Oh,
which
yeah,
is
that'll
10
be a great
wins.
completion.
So I haven't completed the game. I actually haven't done anything except for the multiplayer, which is the thing. Like the problem that I have with multiplayer games is that the thing that I want to do is I want to do all of the multiplayer stuff and then go do everything else, which is
Yeah.
I'll have a million games started on my list and it's all because I've done the multiplayer and that's it.
I mean, that's the
So
stuff that could disappear, right? So
exactly,
I
yeah.
definitely agree. Like I've been picking out a lot of the multiplayer stuff. I don't really
Mm.
have a lot of multiplayer stuff left. It's basically just like I think like SSX is probably the main
Mm.
one, and then everything else is kind of like you got like maybe one or
Right.
two achievements for
And
obviously like
mm,
Neverwinter and stuff that's like MMO stuff that's always online. But
and
yeah,
even
like
that just requires an online functionality. Not
pretty
even
much.
it's
Yeah.
not even a multiplayer game. There's
Yeah.
nothing in that you can do with other people. So
Yeah.
pretty
Right.
much. So
Um,
mm,
yeah. So we'll see. But yeah, I think we're kind of. I'm definitely. I'm doing less backlog, but I've definitely been very consistent in completing the stuff that I start. Like I did Persona 3 and 4, did Proteus, did Minecraft
mm,
Legends. So I've been starting stuff that's coming onto Game Pass this year. There's relatively new, and like kind of have like new experiences. Like I played something that just got added to Game Pass. Well, actually, all three of the things I've been playing this week basically were on Game Pass. Very recently. So it's been um yeah, I've been really enjoying it, but I also have been like really like I need to complete these, and I think the only one that I'm really kind of stuck on is Doom Eternal. It's probably one of the only ones that I started on Game Pass that I
right.
haven't gotten back to, but
Mm.
because it's one of those things where because Microsoft own it, I'm not too worried about it leaving, so I don't really have that push to really get it done.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, hopefully that answers your question. I know you, Simone, I know Simone had an answer in there as well, actually. Before we get to our next
Yeah,
question.
actually, that should be good to put in there too.
Um, yeah, so Simone said that I chose to start new games this year because I realized I was probably going to die before getting around to starting the games I meant to start. Yeah, I know the feeling.
Mm.
I let myself off the hook for not finishing them too, and so far I've had a blast. Yeah, I definitely feel like that's the right approach, right? I mean, like, we have an achievement sickness, and the more you can get away from that, I feel like it's probably
An
healthier.
affliction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Bulbasaur in the chat also says started 48 games, completed 19, 8 of them were backlog. Yeah, exactly. You kind of, I feel like it's really good to get through a backlog. I always get a bit worried when it's like you have so many started and none of them completed, because that's either an indication of like you're not really enjoying the games all that much, or there's problems with them, or they're kind of, like some games you'd hope would be good enough for you to go through and get all the achievements with if you care about that kind of thing, which I assume if you're listening to the
Mm.
show, you probably at least care a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
And
All
then
right.
Simone also puts a question in the chat that will potentially divide us. Pineapple lumps, fridge temperature or room temperature?
All right. So I guess the context, the pineapple lumps, we're talking about the candy, right?
Yes, we are.
Yes, okay, cool. Room temperature.
Yeah,
Like,
hmm,
oh, we're divided, are we?
I don't know. Well, okay, like I quite like pineapple lumps. I
Okay.
mean, for those who don't know, pineapple lumps are essentially a pineapple flavored marshmallow with a chocolate coating, and they're like sort of bite sized. Uh,
Yes.
So some people like to put them in the fridge to chill them out so that the chocolate hardens a bit, and they get like a snap. Which I could definitely see the appeal. Like there's a whole like science thing around like the appeal of crunch and why people like things that crunch. But yeah, I think I got to be with Yuki. I think that like preferably I'd rather not break my teeth on something that's
So like the problem with candy like this is that it might be frozen, but the instant it gets a little bit warmer, it becomes chewy.
Yeah.
And then it's a little bit too chewy, and it's basically a fantail, and that can just fuck off.
Okay,
you can't
fair.
do anything with a fantail.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah,
I mean, look, like if someone like pulls them out, like Char in the chat is talking about how they should be in the freezer, not the fridge. That's fair. Like
that makes sense. Yeah.
Like I'm not gonna, if someone hands me one and is like opens a bag and is like, hey, do you want a pineapple lump? I will probably say yes.
Yeah.
If they pull them out of the fridge, I will probably say yes. If they pull them out of the freezer, I will probably say yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I love pineapple. I love chocolate. Like it's, I'm on board. But I still feel like the room temperature is probably the safest option. Although you do get like they melt quite badly. Like you get like you gotta get in with like the chopsticks or the fork or something, or you gotta eat real fast.
They do. They kind of, I think, ooze if they get too warm. I think.
Yeah.
So
because it's quite a thin layer of chocolate, but they're on marshmallow, so yeah, it's
yeah, and they're like exactly like fantails. Every single one that you pull out of the packet is different. It's either going to be chewy or it's going to be really hard.
Yep. Yeah, you never know.
Yeah. So I guess at that point you might as well put it in the freezer.
Yeah, so they're all hard. Exactly. Yes.
Exactly. If you want consistency and you don't like having an experience that is different every single time, then maybe.
But also just quietly, there are so many other better candy out there. Like I don't mind pineapple lumps, but like the quality of a pineapple lump is pretty fucking bad. Like they're very cheap.
They are.
Yeah. They're kind of a trash candy. Like I like I will eat them, but I almost always regret eating them.
Peak like conveyor belt trash. This has just been thrown together and had some chocolate lumped onto it. So.
Exactly. Like it's the king of the pick and mix thing, where it's like that and like gummy worms. Or gummy Coke bottles. Man, it's making me miss the old days in the movie theaters. Actually, to be fair, there are actually some places where you can get like a really like high quality. Like there are places that do like high quality like hokey pokey, like like a honeycomb and chocolate, and they're just like they charge like ridiculous amount for them, but it's supposed to be like high quality chocolate with high quality honeycomb, and they sell it in like little bags and stuff. And like,
yeah, have you ever had like a crunchy that's just been melted and then solidified again, and it's just this goo?
Interesting. No, that's I mean, like, okay, like crunchy is like whenever I open again. This is like we're super regional on this because US people like have no idea what the fuck we're talking about. But whenever you open the box of favorites, right, it's always the crunchies are always the ones that's left. It's like no one wants the crunchies. It's like the crunchies and usually like dreams because white chocolate's kind of a bit of a weird one for some people. And I'm always like, I guess I'll eat the crunchy, but my problem with the crunchy is that the honeycomb to chocolate ratio is completely fucked. Like there's way too much honeycomb and not nearly enough chocolate. So I mean, if it's gooey and kind of like melted, maybe that's the way to go.
Yeah, I love crunchies, but every single time I have like a full chocolate bar of the crunchy, I feel sick after it.
Yeah.
So best case scenario is you just crush it to bits and just chuck it in some ice cream and you're good to go.
Oh, well, then at that point you might as well just like Tip Top over here make hokey pokey ice cream that way. Basically, I'm on board. That's easy. Actually, they basically did the best of both worlds where they made a hokey pokey ice cream sandwich. You can just buy like an ice cream bar that just has like. So it's has chocolate on the outside, but it's hokey pokey ice cream on the inside instead of actual hokey. Like
I'm down for that. I love me some hokey pokey.
Yeah, so I'm a big fan. I feel like you got to get the consistency right. There are some places. There's like this little like chocolatier place up north that does them where it's just like instead of doing a bar, they just do like small little like balls of it, and they just break pieces of it and then dip it into chocolate and sell it to you. And I'm like, that's about what I'm after. Because otherwise,
like the freeze dried bags of candy these days.
Yeah,
they just take like 4 or 5 little pieces of like the strawberry creams or whatever, and then they just freeze it and sell it to you for like $3, $4.
Of course. Yeah, that's capitalism, baby.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, Simon, hopefully that kind of answers your question. And also we just got to get into a whole thing about candy and how much we fucking love it. I'm more than happy for candy questions to become a thing on this podcast. I love talking about food, almost as much as I love eating it. So feel free. They don't have to be video game related. I mean, well, maybe like hopefully Isaac keeps asking video game related questions. Everyone else can kind of bring up the slack on the other ones.
Yeah. Otherwise, Cameron will have to bring back his international food eating
Oh,
episodes that died really quickly.
That did die first. That's so funny. I completely forgot about that. All right, well, let's get into some news. We got a little bit here. I'll just run through this quick first story because there's not really much here. But Xbox are apparently still up for doing platinum achievements. It kind of the discussion kind of came up again on the Xbox 2 podcast, which again is a great name for a podcast. Where they're basically saying that they had a chat with they were talking with Jez Corden, and Jez Corden said that they spoke to an Xbox exec at Gamescom specifically about platinum achievements, and they said that basically they'd like to do more with the achievement system, but it's basically just a matter of priorities and time. Which I think is kind of what we knew, but it's nice to hear that they haven't completely forgotten that they built this system and invented it in the first place.
Yeah, it's a little bit of elevator talk, that kind of stuff. So it's just like,
and yes, they said it's just a case of getting through all the other stuff they want to do right now, which I imagine is a huge fucking list.
If they did do a platinum, you wouldn't have it as a platinum. You'd have it like Xbox themed somehow, Like how else would you? What would it be? It wouldn't be a platinum. It'd be
you get like a badge or something, right? It would probably be like outside of the achievement system directly because like they probably want to make it retroactive for games you completed. So like they couldn't go, you wouldn't be able to like go back to old games and put it back and be like, oh, well, we need to add an extra achievement for completing the whole game. And it's like, well, some games already have an achievement for that.
Yeah.
Most of them don't. Like I feel, at least in my mind, I mean, what do I know?
Yeah.
Right? But
so the thought, I've thought about this before, and like I was thinking about the PlayStation stuff, right? With you've got platinum, you've got gold, silver, bronze, or trophies.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, why do they not have anything? All their DLC is more bronze trophies and stuff like that. They could have totally went and made it like ruby, sapphire, gold, like it just did like they actually use like minerals, and like Xbox already have the diamond.
True, actually, yeah, it's a very, very good point.
So they could do different tiers of they do a couple of other things like that. So
I feel like Sony were a little bit hamstrung by the fact that they didn't have trophies to begin with, right? That was a big mark against the PlayStation 3, was that 360 had this new interesting thing of the meta game. And they definitely introduced it, but it also didn't get accepted super well straight away because obviously the old games, they didn't go back and add them to the old ones. So you had a bunch of games that didn't have trophies. And then after a point, you had ones that did. And now it's like, okay, well, now everything on PS4 and PS5 obviously has trophies. And they kind of were like, well, the kind of platinum theming thing, because they have the whole leveling system instead of a gamer score system. But you're right. Like, this definitely something that Microsoft could do in terms of like minerals. I'd love to get an Obsidian badge or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, that's not bad because they've got Obsidian as a company. They could just
Well, actually, I was actually thinking like Onyx for like which is the same thing. For like like Gears of War uses that for their medals. I mean, I could definitely see that being something they could co-op.
I don't know why but the PlayStation stuff, like why all of their DLC stuff is so muddied, like trophy wise. But if you actually go onto a PlayStation and you look at a trophy list, they've actually separated the DLCs. So you have the base game, and then you can clearly see what's included with all of the separate DLC lists without looking at anything else. So it's really, really nice, actually, these days. So
like that was always something that I always found a bit weird with Xbox, right? Is that they don't separate out DLC at all for whatever reason. I mean, like it's probably just a design choice. Did they ever do any platinums for some DLCs? I feel like I heard about that for some games, but I imagine it's not widely used.
I don't think so. If anything, it was the standalone expansions.
Yeah, you're probably okay, yeah.
Yeah, and there was only a handful of them. Like I don't think they even did that for anything like Horizon or anything like that. So,
No, definitely not. Yeah.
but yeah, there definitely needs to be like completed status, not completed status, anywhere in between, really. They could do a couple of things with it.
Mm.
So, but yeah, they could do the scout badges, like the woven cloth, like
Yep,
Connected
yep.
Ventures. If you ever loaded that up, just had their
Oh
their menu
God.
system was
Yep.
just like
Yep.
badges. So,
Still need to go back and do that. It's my only Connect game.
oh right, yeah. All I need to do is go and get golden or platinum or whatever it
Platinum
is
on
in
all the
that.
all the
So
things, yeah.
yeah. Hmm.
Well, hey, if you want to co-op it, let me know. We
Hey.
could jump in front of our TVs. Yeah, so I mean, again, there's not really much here. There isn't, we've talked about this before. We'd like it. We'd be interested to see kind of what they're doing with it, and I'm glad that they still have it in there somewhere. But yeah, not holding my breath.
Yes.
All right. Do you want to grab another story there?
All right, so I'm gonna go into this one about X Defiant because that's kind of a jam with the old Tom Clancy stuff. So Ubisoft's free-to-play shooter has been delayed after failing the pass certification on both Xbox and PlayStation platforms. So there was a blog that went out, a blog post, by by Mark Rubin, who I believe is heading that. Let me just go and
Yes.
fix this up. So basically, he says first things first. Here's a detailed description of what a submission process goes. So he actually explains what the certification process is to actually get something onto console, which is basically like a month of, they've got tests and then they have to, submit and has to go through compliance. And then if that fails, they have to go back and then do it again. So they basically from that, they said if we don't pass, then we need to spend about a month fixing it. So where are they at the moment with that? I'll actually just read this from the blog post. At the end of July, we started this process. We got our first results back by mid-August, which was not a pass. So we realized then we had more work related to compliance than anticipated. If it had passed, we would have been able to ship at the end of August. So basically, they've got this game ready to go.
Yeah.
They want to get it out there as soon as possible. I don't think they really care when it's going to drop because it's going to be basically the next Rainbow Six Siege.
That's what they're hoping, at least, right?
Yes, exactly. And everything so far has been positive. All of the betas or whatever pre-early alphas and all that kind of stuff that they've been doing with it have been actually really good. And they've specifically said like these are not it's not just marketing, it's actually a tool to get things working properly.
Yeah.
So and they're just loading things in and getting everything working. So it's really, really important. And that's basically like yeah, there's not really much more to say than that. They're trying to get the game out. It's got to go through certification and yeah, and it's not only Xbox, it's both platforms.
I was going to say, yeah.
There's something in behind it that I have to work something out to get it out. So, do you have any?
It's interesting, yeah, because you're right that they kind of, it's from, and I hadn't thought about this until you kind of brought it up, but they are positioning this game to kind of be what Siege was to say Counter-Strike. This is supposed to be to Call of Duty, basically. I think is kind of how they're positioning it, with it being more sort of fast-paced, like old school Call of Duty. I'm talking like Modern Warfare.
Yeah, they've definitely taken elements from each of the games. The one I know mostly is The Division. They basically got a thing like Overwatch where it's like a payload where you have to take something from point A to point B, and they've got the Division has like a robot dog. They're just called doggos and stuff like that in the game, and you had to take kind of those robots basically to the endpoint to pass the missions. So they've really themed it up. It looks good.
It's really interesting, yeah, and I think that, like you said, the response was overall pretty positive. I think they had a few things to tweak here and there, but that's not unusual. Obviously, there's some stuff on the back end they need to fix.
Yeah, they can get it passed and then have like a preliminary update basically that's like a day one patch they have to hit. So it's like conditional. Yes, it works. Yes, you can release it, but
You
and
need to
it's
fix this thing. Yeah.
there's only been one or two games that we know of that have really failed straight
Yeah,
out the
well,
bat. So
I was actually going to bring this up because obviously with the news with Cyberpunk having their latest
mm,
update coming out, plus their new DLC, which looks fucking fantastic.
mm,
Like I believe, like they were one of the few companies that were like, hey, they got a um conditional approval for PlayStation, for example,
yeah,
didn't fix the issues with the patch, still had the issues day one, and PlayStation pulled them from the
yes,
store.
yeah,
So, and I feel like, there was a big discussion at the time around is the fact that Cyberpunk, one of the biggest games of all time, kind of doing this, meaning that they're now going to get way stricter around their certification in terms of like what they'll
mm,
allow to kind of have, what you're allowed to put into a day one patch versus what they want to see day and date.
yeah, yeah. There's like a whole bunch of transparency. They can't really lie anything about anything
Yeah,
now.
right. Like it's
So
kind of full because it looks bad for them, looks
mhm,
bad for the company, and
yeah,
if you end up pulling something from the store, like PlayStation is only, I think, only ever
mm,
done that like one other time for, I think it was Batman Arkham Knight, which had all kinds of issues when it launched. But
right.
like,
NPC got pulled as well
yes,
by
exactly,
one.
yes, but it's
So
like
mm,
that's unheard of. So
mm.
I feel like, yeah, having conditional approval these days, I think, is you probably get a lot less leeway than you used to before that.
Yeah, and like the thing is, things are being built for console these days, and then being basically it's built for PC, but for console, and then basically like they're running the console, the PC's running a console copy nearly because they've got all the controller imports and blah blah blah.
Yeah, and if
Like,
I actually don't know if they're doing any kind of crossplay stuff, but that's also just basically going to be, it's like, well, if you think about it, for any game that has crossplay, that
okay,
that certification process becomes, even more fraught with potential issues.
yeah, because Sony still charge for crossplay, I believe,
Yeah,
to have games have crossplay. But Hyperscape had crossplay,
it's true. It did.
and they've
For
learned a
people who
lot
remember
from
that.
there, and they know people want crossplay, so it should have it. As far as I'm aware, you can. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think the most interesting thing about the story, I guess, is the fact that we get a kind of a view into a process that we don't really usually hear a lot about, and
Mm,
he's being surprisingly open about the fact that they basically aren't ready, and they kind of failed their certification, which is something you don't usually hear from.
mm.
I think this might be the first time I've ever heard about that, like especially this publicly and from a company that large.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they're having trouble with what's that pirate game? So
Skull and Bones,
Skull and Bones, 'cause they really need to be transparent about their stuff, or they're just gonna like it's gonna be dead in the water, just like Hyperscape. Like,
and Ubisoft really does need kind of a winner at this stage. We've talked about it in the past about how their last few games have not done very well. Like last Ghost Recon was a nightmare. Far Cry 6 did okay, but didn't do amazing.
oh, they could
Um,
always just port all their stuff to an Apple platform.
True, that potentially they'll take anything on
Mm,
those.
mm.
Um, yeah, I'm interested to see. I also feel like, I guess, do you think this game's coming out this year?
Actually, uh, I think it is.
You think?
The challenges have gone up on the Ubisoft Uplay. We believe that they're in-game challenges, so they were
Right.
tweeted out. There's a couple of really good Twitters, tweeters, X's, that actually have all of those challenge details kind of on the Ubisoft platform. I don't use that, so I don't
Yeah, right, neither.
see any of that at all. So yeah, so and we were thinking they might have been actual like achievements, but it looks like they're in-game. So
Right. Okay.
so
Yeah,
yeah, it's ready to go, but I reckon.
I'm very curious. Like, I think that the prospect of launching in August is going to be very different to the prospect in launching in October or November this year, right? With
Mm,
with the way the release schedule is completely stacked, and vying for people's time. I feel like
yeah,
going, oh yeah, we're going to come out at the same time as the new Call of Duty, along with everything fucking else coming out in the next week or two.
yeah, yeah.
People are going to be pretty squeezed for time, and I feel like it's going to be I mean, we're already seeing companies moving their release dates and openly admitting that they're trying to get out of the release season. I mean, looking at like Alone in the Dark is moving to next year.
Yeah.
Was Alan Wake 2 moved a bit as well for that reason.
Yeah. Alan Wake's going to be a weird one. Because the first one didn't really sell a whole lot.
I think it did okay, right? But it
Yeah.
definitely didn't do the numbers that they needed for it. Yeah, so that's why it's taken this long to get a sequel.
Yeah.
Fuck, there's so many games. There's so like I looked at the list today because I was like, oh, I should probably like plan ahead for like our Game of the Year show. You know, at the end of the year, I'm like, fuck me, I have a lot of games to play.
Yeah. A lot of games to start, you mean?
True. Also true. Anything more you want to say on that one?
No, that's pretty much it. That's covered pretty well. So yeah,
cool.
Hopefully it releases this year. I know a few people that are excited for it. So, and I'm all over this kind of stuff too. So I'll generally play it. So
yeah, I might even give it a look in if the achievements aren't too bad. So we had a bit of news last week around Volition, unfortunately getting shuttered, owned by Embracer Group, after Embracer Group's $2 billion deal with the Saudis fell through, which was really heartbreaking for them.
Yeah.
And it looks like the axe has still got a few more heads to cut, because there's talk that apparently Embracer is looking to sell Gearbox, which is kind of nuts. They acquired them, was it 2 or 3 years ago, I think, at this point?
Yeah. There's kind of like the problem, I guess, with Embracer is it's really just like the guy that owns it is an investor. So
yeah,
like we know how that works. You buy and you sell. So and the Saudi deal didn't work, and this is just kind of what's happening. What's going to happen to the IP? What's going to happen to like they'll sell off Gearbox, but you know, is the IP going to go with them, or is it just going to go?
Yeah, because I think that at least in terms of like Borderlands, which I guess is like Gearbox's largest IP, I'm pretty sure they still own it. Because but to be fair, I don't think that Gearbox is worth anything without that IP.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And I don't think Ready Picture would be happy if they sold the company without the IP. It gives them nothing to work with.
Yeah, exactly. So like it's just like they don't have anybody that they would really pass. They've got so many companies, but there wouldn't be anyone to pass these games onto. Like Saints Row is just going to sit there.
Yeah,
we're not going to probably see another Saints Row at all.
So definitely not in its current form. Yeah.
No. So unless that IP gets sold, imagine just getting like a whole bunch of IP just sold off before like even selling some of these companies. Is just like I don't know.
I mean, like I'm suddenly like the way that Embracer Group came onto the scene was the fact that they bought THQ, right, or a lot of THQ stuff.
Yeah. So what do? Do you sell the company that makes the games, or do you sell the IP, which is where the value's at? Is the value in the developers, or do you sell the IP and then dismantle the company?
Yeah, I feel like, at least in the case of Borderlands, if someone's, and they do say they have some active interest from third parties, but they haven't had like official word out yet. But this is from insiders.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I feel like they'll buy no one's going to buy Gearbox. Gearbox don't have enough skill making other games, and their publishing arm also doesn't. I mean, they have done quite a few things, but I don't know. Like I'm trying to think about like what Gearbox has done recently.
I mean, the last thing I remember, which is actually on my list to play, is Alien Colonial Marines. I don't even remember what else they've done.
I'm just looking at like Gearbox software. So yeah, it's basically just been Borderlands games. They did Duke Nukem. Yeah, Battleborn, Borderlands games. Like that's it. That's all they've done. They've done. And Aliens Colonial Marines, as you rightly say.
Right. I forgot about Duke Nukem. I still haven't finished that.
They bought it. It's trash. Yeah, without that IP, they don't really have a business. I know they definitely were into publishing as well, but I'm trying to see what Gearbox Publishing has done. They have a few, like some of the indie titles. Like I mean, they publish Risk of Rain, We Happy Few, but obviously now that's owned. They they published Remnant 2 as well, but they also worked with THQ Nordic, who are also owned by Embracer. So it's like,
Yeah, 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 yeah. So I didn't like the devs that are on these. They could be moved around, and I guess what you do with this kind of stuff is you consolidate the companies and you put the stuff where you need them, and you're putting them into the talent into the companies that aren't pushing top games, and then maybe they'll make better games. But
you'd hope so, right? Because
mm,
as far as I'm aware, I mean, people have some thoughts about Borderlands 3 in terms of
mhm.
like again, it took a long time to come out. People tend to like the gameplay improvements, but not so much the
Yeah.
narrative. Wonderlands
Mm,
apparently did okay, but again, like they haven't put out a game for a little while now.
mm.
I think the last thing they did was the new Tales from the Borderlands, which did not go over very well.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we can speculate why these companies are being targeted. Like
Mm.
Saints Row didn't do well, so they shut down that Volition, and then like is it because of Tiny Tina that this is shut down? Or
Maybe,
is it
but to be fair, it might just be that hey, they finished the game, they haven't started on a new game, or they're early enough in production
mm,
that they're not gonna. It doesn't make sense to put all this money into something that's kind of going to take another. Like, there's a whole
mm,
thing around these games. It takes 5 years to make a fucking video game these days,
yeah.
and it's like if you're 6 months into development, as opposed to another like two other studios that are 3 or 4 years into development,
Hmm.
then you go, you know what? Like, if we have to cut, we're going to cut on the people who are on the shortest, who aren't as invested or aren't as deep into it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
what are they going to do? Borderlands 4? Like, I mean, if you think about like the gap between Borderlands 2, which was what 2015, and then Borderlands 3 was 2019.
Yeah, I guess that's not a bad turnaround,
Yeah, it's not too
really.
bad. Well, actually, no. Well, I say
Was it?
Borderlands 2 was technically on the 360 first,
Oh,
right? So
yes. No, you're right. I should
because
have
it
covered
got
those.
ported, so actually it would be like 2012. So again, there was a lot. Yeah,
Mm,
so there was a big fucking gap
mm.
where they didn't really put out much.
Yeah, yeah. And you can totally tell it's just an investment thing because basically he's selling what he's buying.
Yeah,
He's not looking at the IP and doing anything with that at this stage. So it's just like, yeah. Mm. Which is the next thing, really. It's just like, where is some of that going to go?
yeah. I guess the
So,
question is, yeah, who is the interested parties, right? Like
mm,
what publisher would be interested in buying up this studio? Because Embracer was that publisher, right? They were the ones who
mhm.
grabbed all the kind of small to medium dev, that the sort of double A development dev to kind of, and that like they became the double A publisher
Yeah,
for all that kind of stuff. And you're like, oh, fucking Embracer Group owns everything.
yeah. Mediocre everything.
Yeah.
So, mm. Yeah,
Uh,
so mostly just existing stuff that was already out, and then they haven't really put anything solid out since then. So, um, it'd be interesting to go and see what other companies they've had that have released stuff that hasn't done very well, and kind of debate on what's actually next because they're
yeah.
not done. So,
No, definitely not. They
mm,
$2 billion is a lot of money you got to make up.
mm.
Oh, all right. Well, let's talk about this last one about Unity, the story that's just, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this before.
Mm.
Um,
Yep.
do you
Yep,
want
the
to?
games industry is doing lots of new stuff this year, we can say.
Yes, yeah. Uh, do you want to go through it? And
Okay, cool. So this is a big one. So the Unity Technologies, the CEO of that company is the ex-CEO of EA.
John Riccatello, yep.
Yep. So basically, they've recently announced in a blog post that would soon charge developers a fee each time a game is installed. Starting January 1st, 2024, Unity will slap developers with a Unity runtime fee for games that have passed a certain revenue threshold in the past 12 months and lifetime stall count. So basically, we don't really need to get into the dollar amounts here, but the install fee, if you've had something installed over the last, 12 months or so, or whatever, basically Unity are the only guys that can actually see these statistics, which is the one of the major problems.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they've already said what they're going to charge, right? But if they're the only ones that can see this as statistics, they can hammy it up as much as they,
Yeah.
they want.
Not
So
that we would accuse them of fraud, but
no, 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 no.
there is a lack of oversight there that is concerning, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. So, and from there, we've had heaps, loads and loads of little indie devs and stuff doing actual full like template things on Twitter saying today Unity, the engine we use to make our games, and now they'll be taking fees and basically just telling Unity to fuck off. So, mm,
Quite
so
rightly.
the first one that I saw was the Cult of the Lamb one. They're basically saying we are deleting our game from January 2024 so that there's no more installs, so they couldn't get any more fees. But I think they've already passed the threshold, so they would be getting charged anyway.
Yeah,
Um,
they were being somewhat facetious for headline reasons, which they
yes,
admitted.
exactly.
But it's a
So
good point. Like, there's also an important thing to do with this is also they're tracking downloads of any kind, installs of any kind. So there is a real risk of if you pirate something or if someone pirates something,
mhm.
that may be included because everything connects to the Unity servers with their when you sign into it or use it. So there is the possibility that if you want to bring down your arch nemesis dev, you go and pirate their game on a macro that installs it 50 million times. Suddenly they're getting charged out the ass.
Yes, exactly. So they went on from there to actually clarify exactly what they mean. And then I believe they took that clarity post and posted it in every single Twitter feed that had the devs kind of having just like wherever the devs posted their we don't really like this thing, they posted it just kind of like really doubling down. It was kind of
It's even more insane than that, isn't
hmm
that they also put it into their ad network. So if you see a Unity ad, you will see this statement. You won't see, hey, join Unity. You'll see this fucking statement, which is
yes.
nuts. I mean, it's like I understand why they did it because they want to get out there as quickly as possible.
Mhm.
But it's amazing that they're actually paying to now get this statement out in front of people because it's been so damaging.
Yeah, and then moving on with that as well, they've closed their San Francisco and Austin offices because of death threats. Now too, I don't know
Yes.
if you've seen that. So that's on gamesindustry.biz is where I've kind of seen that. So they're just being targeted now, and
Well,
angry
yeah, there's
developers
also
and
been
everyone.
some
So
question of the validity of that as well.
yep.
But again, it's kind of like playing telephone. We don't really know who knows what. But there was some
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
around the fact
yeah.
that there was some potentially some misinformation. But you're right. They have closed the
Mm,
offices, and they said the reason was because they've been getting death threats.
yes. It has nothing to do with shares being sold and bought.
No, also yes, probably good to bring up that also that Riccatello was seen to have been selling a bunch of shares before this announcement happened.
Yeah, so
Which we in the legal side of things, I believe is called insider trading. But hey, whatever.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that was happening for months and months beforehand, like
yes,
slowly, like
obviously
leading up to.
this didn't just come out of nowhere, right? They definitely have this
Mm,
planned. Another interesting point where we also haven't mentioned is that um, there is definitely some ambiguity around that their messaging hasn't been amazing as to like what this does impact, but people have been taking the worst
mhm,
case scenario, which to be
mhm.
fair, given Riccatello's kind of history with EA,
Yep.
that doesn't surprise me. That's the approach I would take as well.
Yes.
Um, this is potentially going to impact things retroactively as well. So it's not just going to be developers from January 1st onwards
Hmm.
who release new Unity games. It'll be people who have existing Unity games and people who have crossed the threshold in the past once that crosses over. So I've seen some devs basically say that the amount of money that they would have to pay would be more than they made on the game itself if these fees
Yes.
go through, which is insane.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So the like you'd have to completely rebuild certain games to not use any assets.
Yeah, it's like
So
Unity is a very popular engine, especially in
mhm,
the indie scene.
mhm. Yeah, and if it wasn't whole games built in Unity, it was assets built in Unity. So some kind of framework. Yeah. So
Yeah, Game Maker has been offering people 3 months free migration today, which is real smart of them. There's been a bunch of other.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, I just saw it this afternoon. They were talking about it on Twitter. Yeah, so it looks the fallout from this is insane. Like devs are up in arms in a way that I have not seen ever.
Yeah, and we cannot express like how much this affects the gaming industry. Like
it's huge.
So, yeah.
I mean, people were already joking that Silksong is going to have to, we've been waiting, 5 years of Silksong. We have to wait another 5 years to rebuild it in whatever engine they choose. It's just such an own goal, and I can't say I'm surprised considering like the Unity has also had its reputation tarnished quite recently over the whole adware thing that the adware business they acquired and implemented, and people were worried about that as well. Because I mean, let me put it this way. Games that use Unity, like we've got things like Cult of the Lamb, Hollow Knight, but also things like Genshin Impact is built in Unity. I mean, good fucking luck. Like the games industry is not going to fucking sit around for that, like big or small. They also came up with a statement being like, "Oh yeah," so someone asked them, "Oh, what happens if people like these games are on like Game Pass or like on subscription service, Ubisoft Plus or whatever, and they said, "Oh well, yeah, the platform holders will pay for that then." So like they're like, "Oh yes, if it's a Game Pass game, Microsoft will pay for it." I'm like, in what world will Microsoft pay that fee? I mean,
yes, they have a million lawyers and they know what to do with them. They've already been through this year.
Yeah, come on, how ridiculously naive can you be? The last thing I'll say on it is that the other thing that we need to remember is that a lot of Unity games are your free-to-play mobile games, which make a lot of money. And I feel like this strategy is more aimed at like trying to clip the ticket more on those, and every other dev is getting caught in the crossfire because they just don't care enough. But they also can't come out and say, "Oh yeah, but only for free-to-play devs because we want to make a bunch of money on mobile."
Right. Yeah. 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 The free-to-play. Yeah. There's just so much of that stuff. I mean,
exactly. Yeah, and they also like deleted their TOS on GitHub and stuff to like do some shady shit so people didn't see the commits and the changes, and yeah, it's all kinds of stuff. But it's just absolutely insane. It just kind of exploded this week.
Yeah, I'm sure that will continue.
Yeah, we'll keep you guys up to date with the latest developments.
Yeah. All right. Probably the other thing that we need to bring up in terms of news, which has kind of just popped up in the Nintendo Direct, is actually Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3 are getting a remaster. So I haven't watched the trailer for it yet, but they've really upgraded the models and stuff like that. And I'm really keen for this. I don't know if it's just going to be the like base games, because they did like the gold editions on PC for all of these. So they're probably just going to be built on what happened with the consoles. But I mean, there's been so much stuff put into the Tomb Raider games over the years that they could just pull from anywhere to make these better. So
yeah, it looks like it's going to be all three of the Tomb Raider games plus their expansions.
Plus the expansions. So that is the gold. So Unfinished Business, Golden Mask, Lost Artifact. So there's I think Markiplier did a really good Tomb Raider like retrospective on like what was good and bad about Tomb Raider, the development behind it and stuff like that. So that's really good. You should go watch that. But basically, like there was a whole bunch of stuff going on in the background, and it's just like, well, we like most devs back when these games were being made, it's like, oh, Tomb Raider 2 is not ready yet, so let's release this little mini thing on the side and make some money off that. And then it's like, I believe he was saying that Tomb Raider 3 was never supposed to be, Tomb Raider 3. It was supposed to be the expansion for Tomb Raider 2 and something like that anyway. I can't remember exactly, but yeah, there's just it's so messy because of the whole Lara Croft persona becoming like its own thing back in the day. So but yeah, you could talk to anybody back then and you just say, oh, I play Tomb Raider for the video games. It's like, no, you don't. You play it for Lara Croft.
Yeah, exactly.
So I know I got a lot of that, and I really do play the game because I like it. But
I mean, I've played most of the Tomb Raider games over the years. They have definitely been in varying levels of quality. I really like what they did with the most recent trilogy, was really good, but the previous trilogy was also decent as well. Obviously, the previous trilogy was kind of more of like an upgraded version of this, whereas the new trilogy was more your kind of classic survival third-person shooter.
Yeah, as big as a fan as I am, I still haven't played Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I really need to do that.
Shadow is definitely the weakest of the trilogy.
Mm,
I think Rise is kind of where it hit its
Rise
stride.
was really, really good. Yeah, and that still had a 360 port, which isn't backwards compatible.
True.
So
Yep.
if you want that and the DLC and whatever, and the survival mode was a little bit easier on that as well, I believe, too.
Yeah.
So, the context with the expansions, they were basically 4 extra levels or so that were just kind of tacked on. So I'd like to see if they were part of like the middle of the game, if they were actually put in somewhere,
Oh
if
yeah, I see what you
they,
mean. Yeah.
yeah. So because Tomb Raider 3 had this thing where it was kind of like a spiral and you could kind of choose what level you go to first.
Oh right.
Yeah, so and then there's a lost artifact added to that as well. But I mean, if they're doing this, I'd really, really, really like to see the newer ones. Like for people that haven't played these games, there's so much stuff that goes into like you had Tomb Raider Chronicles and you had Tomb Raider 4. So Tomb Raider 4 kind of had some stuff happening to Lara Croft. I don't really want to spoil it for people. I mean, it's hard to say, oh yeah, you could just spoil the game. But basically, Tomb Raider Chronicles was basically the stories of Lara Croft because Lara Croft was missing, so presumed dead. Which but that's and then came back for 6 and all that kind of stuff, and then
Was it like
from
Angel of
there,
Darkness
so
was the
Angel
one?
of Darkness, yes.
That was the one.
So
They were supposed to be like the last one. They were like, we're done with the series after
it was
this.
supposed to be a trilogy, I
Yeah,
believe.
right.
So, so they introduced a secondary character that you were supposed to play at some point. They had Lara talking to people and it had dialogue options as well. I actually really like that game. There's this really nifty disco scene level, which is really, really good. So, lots of like laser trickery work and stuff like that. So, but I mean, it was still very blocky and probably could have been, it could be a good game if they really went and tried to do something with it, but
Yeah, I was like, that gets into that weird territory, right? Where
it does.
the original games were quite
Mm,
pure in terms of like what they were. They were very
yeah.
like they were ambitious, but also to a real extent where they kind
Yes.
of got it together around like Legend and Anniversary and Underworld, that trilogy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And PlayStation 2, early 360.
Mm.
But yeah. Mm.
Yeah. Chronicles had some really, really good stories. Like I think German U-boat stuff and under the in a
I mean,
submarine or something
they
like
own the
that.
IP, like I'm
Yeah.
sure that they'll use it as much as they can and get the old games out for the new generation who just never played it. So
Yeah. And
I'm
yeah,
keen.
there's a lot of people that were having like these games are stuck on old PCs and like PS1 basically.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
it's definitely the right time to bring it back.
mhm.
I'll just quickly touch on a story. I will try not to turn this into a whole list, but obviously with Games with Gold being gone, it is now being replaced today, basically, I think, with Xbox Game Pass Core, which is the kind of regular tier, which includes online play, cloud saves, and 36 games at launch.
Yes.
So it's kind of a condensed version down of the library. I will very quickly read through the list. I don't want to turn this into a list podcast. But we've got Among Us, Astroneer, Celeste, Dead Cells, Descenders, Dishonored 2, Doom Eternal, Fable, Anniversary, Fallout 4, Fallout 76, Firewatch, Forza Horizon 4, Gang Beasts, Gears 5, Golf with Your Friends, Grounded, Halo 5 Guardians, Halo Wars 2, Hellblade 1, Human Fall Flat, Inside Limbo, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Overcooked 2, Payday 2, Power Wash Simulator, Psychonauts 2, Slay the Spire, Spiritfarer, Farewell Edition, Stardew Valley, State of Decay 2, Superliminal, Elder Scrolls Online, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Shredder's Revenge, Unpacking, and Vampire Survivors. Apparently Microsoft said they're going to do a bit like a rotation every kind of 2 to 3 times a year. I imagine, like you could probably tell, most of those games in there are games that Microsoft owns, so there's no risk of them disappearing for the most part. It'll probably be some of the other stuff around the edges. But there's also some really good games in there.
Yeah, games that just came back into Game Pass, like Firewatch and Spiritfarer.
Yeah, which I guess like that's probably the reason why they're back, is that they
Mm.
realize that actually these are probably some good ones for this core service.
Yeah, this is a very Core is a very good onboarding system.
Yeah.
So if you've never had an Xbox before and you just get an Xbox and you wanted to play online or whatever, or you either want to play online or you want to just experience some games you've never played before, then because this is the one that doesn't have multiplayer, isn't it? Is it, or does this have
No,
basic?
this
It's
one
got
does have
basic
multiplayer.
multiplayer.
Yes, the
Yeah.
basic, yeah.
So the console, yeah. So you get your basic multiplayer. I've actually considered going down to this tier.
Mm,
Just because I'm like, I have so many games that I can play that I own.
sure.
It's not a problem. I can just, and like there's a few on here that I haven't finished yet. And other than that, yeah, it's really good. So if you want new day one games, then go to the higher tiers. But it's a good list of games. So
Yeah, I totally agree. I'm what I'm most curious about, like how many of them will change when they do the rotation. Will it be like
yeah,
a brand new list of 36, or will it be like they swap out like 15 of them, or yeah, like
yeah. Are they going to do first party swap outs, or did they do deals with these other companies to keep these games? Like if they just established a separate thing and it's like, well, let's just keep your game in core.
yeah,
It's
it's like Among Us
continuous.
never
It's like
leaves core because they're like it's so
yeah,
popular that why would we?
yeah,
Yeah,
just a perpetual like income, I guess,
yeah,
for the
definitely. And like we definitely see a lot of stuff on here that's been in Game Pass for quite a while. Like if you look at like Slay the Spire,
Mhm.
it's been in Game Pass for ages. And maybe that's just like they just extended out the deal and they're like, well, yeah, it was going to be on core for ages, which means, and I imagine, I don't think there's going to be anything in core that won't be in full Game Pass anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've got stuff like Ori and the Will of the Wisps. If you like that, the other one's on
Exactly. Yep.
Ultimate.
I was just exactly. And like,
Payday
Dishonored
3's
2, for
coming out.
example, was like, yeah, Dishonored 1 and
Yeah.
the expansion is in there as well.
It's good to see Power Wash Simulator is going to be in there for maybe a little bit longer then. Yes, because it's getting more DLC content.
Yeah, exactly.
So
And David points out that Vampire Survivors is worth the price of admission alone. Exactly. Like Vampire Survivors is like a fantastic get. Like they just need to pay that dev whatever he needs to stay on that surface forever.
yeah, because I mean, it's only like $4 or $5 to buy the game as it is, really. So if they're getting a bag and it's more than like what they're charging, then that's great. So
yeah, 100%. On that, I will just quickly go through some of the Game Pass updates. So yeah, as you mentioned, a Spiritfarer Farewell Edition is now back. Bit of a surprise, but we kind of see that's because it's in core, so that is now back, which is great. A beautiful, beautiful game, in my opinion, marred by the fact that you have to play it. Unfortunately, it's great, but the management side of things is just kind of like I would much rather have been a walking simulator or just a story-based game with some puzzles. We also had Solar Ash added today from the developers of Hyperlight Drifter. This game looks beautiful. I just go check out a trailer for this. It looks incredible. It's definitely on my to play list. I have a lot on that to playlist though, so I probably won't get to it immediately, but it's definitely high up on there. We've also got Liza P joining us on the 19th, which I'm also very excited for. Don't know where I'm going to find time for that one either.
Yeah, I want to download that. I'm not going to stream it or anything like that. I still have a couple of things that I wanted to stream, like Wolong before it leaves Game Pass or something.
Oh yeah,
and that's
sure.
another similar game that I haven't gotten to yet. Somehow, how am I supposed to put this in there? But
and that's coming out. That's coming out with more DLC as well. So this thing is a new DLC pack for that this month, and one more in November, I think. We also have Party Animals on the 20th, which I know Char is very excited for. Looks quite good.
Yep.
Payday 3 on the 21st, which I'm hearing
yeah,
mixed things about it, considering how Payday 2 kind of went down on console.
Payday's really hard. It's a very niche of a niche kind of like.
Yeah.
Did you like Grand Theft Auto? Did you want Grand Theft Auto heists before Grand Theft Auto heists? And then
but also really buggy and kind of difficult, but also very grindy. And I love the concept of I played 2 quite a bit on the 360. I love the concept, but the execution kind of leaves a little bit to be desired, unfortunately. But we'll see. I mean, hey, it's a new game. It's been a while since Payday 2. people are interested for sure. But and I think Game Pass is a good thing to be on it, right? Because it's that classic thing of you need a good squad for this, and convincing 4 people to buy a game versus convincing 4 people who have Game Pass to help you out.
Yeah, and if it doesn't do well, they can swap Payday 2 out of Core and put Payday 3 in Core, and then have everyone have access to it.
Exactly. And then Cocoon is at the end of the month on the 29th. So very interested in that. I still don't understand how it works. The puzzly stuff is very mind-bendy, but I'm very curious to see it in action once we get a little bit closer.
I had this on my list of stuff that I wanted to play, and I just feel like it's probably going to break me a little bit, but yeah.
But it'll also probably be a nice, relatively short game, I think. Be a nice palate cleanser for the other, 50 to 100 hour stuff that we'll be working on.
Yes.
And unfortunately, we don't know what's leaving Game Pass yet because it's only just hit the 15th here. So we'll have to report in next week on what people need to jump on before it goes bye-bye. All right. Well, I suppose we should probably get into what we've been playing then. I will just quickly start with Sea of Stars. So I finished that last weekend. My thoughts are pretty much the same. Fantastic game to start with. Dips a little bit in the middle, really picks it back up at the end. Story's good. Full of interesting twists and turns, lots of stuff in there. You can tell it's maybe the same devs as The Messengers, a lot of love, but there's also a lot of humor, but there's also like seriousness. Music is fucking fantastic. Gameplay is good, but gets a little bit repetitive. Still highly, highly recommend. I'm sure I'm going to see on a lot of Game of the Year lists for this year. It might even end up on mine. Don't know if it's going to be at number 1, but it's definitely going to be talked about. What about you, Keo? Working on some stuff leaving Game Pass?
So I wasn't really going to, but I figured I'd at least tried I'd started Metal Hellsinger, the Series X version, and then kind of put that on my computer and played it there for a little bit. And there was one level that I had issues with because it just did this ghosting effect and I couldn't play it anymore. So I needed to install back on my Xbox. And then I'm like, right, well, this says I played for 23 hours. I streamed it for a bit originally, all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, I'm going to go and finish this. And then I played the Xbox One version, smashed it in like 4 hours.
Easy. Yep.
So easy to do. And I think Aftos got in on it as well. He went and played that too. And finished it. And it's definitely one that should not be missed by anybody that's into that kind of theme. What I ended up doing was because anybody that doesn't know Metal Hellsinger, it's basically a first-person rhythm game where you go around hell and you've got a few different weapons and stuff like that, and it has the main story and then it has just some challenge levels. I ended up just putting the assist mode on and then just forgetting about the timing and just running around the level and having fun with it.
It just becomes like a fun boomer shooter.
Just, to a good tune. And then at that point, you're at 16 times your bonus every single time. And you're just hearing the whole force of the track right through the levels. And it's really, really good, which kind of falls short if you're trying to play it on any other difficulty. And because when I started the Xbox One version, I didn't have the assist mode on, and then I went back and started playing it again without realizing. And I'm like, why am I not hitting everything? Because if you don't hit things on time, your shot doesn't work. You can't hit the enemy, and you don't get and it's just like, just put the assist on and enjoy the game. And and maybe they'll work something out refine it a little bit better for next time if they do something about it. I feel like there's probably going to be some kind of expansion for that though.
I don't know. I feel like it's going more in the sequel territory though. Like,
well, expansion / sequel. Yeah, no, you're right.
I definitely feel like the ending is like, they're going to do more of this. Like
they can definitely,
and apparently it did quite well, and people, it got reviewed relatively well, and obviously did pretty well on Game Pass. A lot of people have played it, so I wouldn't be surprised if they do another game. And also, like, it's not a very long game. They don't have to make I'm totally fine with having another 4 to 6 hour experience.
Yeah, exactly. It was nice. Yeah, it was good. The other Game Pass leaving game I decided to play was actually DC Super Pets.
Oh yeah.
I only want to bring this up because, like, I was having a chat with a friend and I was like, well, looking at the list, they pointed out that of the DC series games that I have, I've started basically everything. And the only thing I didn't have was this shitty kids game that would only take a couple of hours to finish. That is worth $60 if you tried to buy it outside of Game Pass.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I might as well just try and complete my list. I've got like all the Batman stacks and everything on there, so I'll just go and do it. It barely even has like so it's really just like a shoot 'em up.
Yep.
And you've played it, have you? Did you end
Yep.
up
Yep.
doing
I
that?
did. I did it
Yeah.
ages
Mm.
ago. Yeah. But it's on
Yeah,
rail shooter.
so it's a really hand-holding kid shooter where basically you have a dog and it's themed after either Superman or Batman. And for the most of the game, I didn't even realize that the Ace dog was a Batman themed dog. I'm like,
Right.
yeah, it's just this Superman dog. And I'm like, oh, wait, that's actually a Batman dog. And yeah. And yeah, so you just kind of like go through the levels and stuff. But the best thing about it was the second boss in the second world. It's like had this octopus kind of thing. It
Hmm.
was really neat where you could just kind of shoot the orbs. The orbs move. The octopus flies away and comes back and does a different style of moves. And it's just like that was really, really nice. It was a good boss battle. The first world and the third world, so it's only 3 worlds with 5 levels, were trash.
Yeah.
And
It's
and there was just this really solid boss battle in the middle of the
yeah. They were like,
game.
"Well,
But
I got one idea," and they're like, "Well, we need three of them." They're like, "Well, I got one."
uh yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, the bay levels are basically all the same, and I just wanted to point that out, really. So, like, yeah, I did it
Easy.
just because, yeah, and that boss battle. So, cool.
Um.
What else have you been playing?
So I also played a recent Game Pass edition, Greece,
Hmm.
as Cameron corrected our pronunciation last week.
Ah,
Which is a side-scrolling platformer, platform puzzler with really like a beautiful kind of like black and white art style with kind of splashes of color, and then kind of quite like yeah.
mm,
And the whole idea is that there's no dialogue, there's no words, it's all told through imagery and symbolism. Um, but the game is essentially about grief. And I won't say any more than that, basically. But you basically travel through a bunch of worlds, restoring color to the worlds while doing puzzles, grabbing collectibles, finding mementos. Um, and it's kind of yeah, it's kind of like an internal journey. It's very very beautiful. It's relatively straightforward. I would say just have a collectible guide because the mementos can be quite easy to miss. But and there's usually like 1 or 2 achievements per kind of zone that you need to get just to keep an eye out for, but they're pretty straightforward.
all
Not
right.
overly difficult. There's like one slightly challenging achievement, which is for like it's one of these things where it's like don't get hit during this thing, which is not too bad, but it took me a few tries. Definitely recommend it. 5 to 6 hour game, if that. And you know this is like screenshot bait. Like it looks incredible.
Okay, I haven't played it, so I haven't even seen what it looks like. So,
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it. Yeah, there isn't really much else to it.
mm,
But yeah, it's on Game Pass. It's been out for a little while, which is nice, and so they've kind of just added it.
mm.
I can't remember who publishes it, but was it Devolver? It was Chris. Hang on, let me just double check that because I feel like we talked about it. Yeah, Devolver. Yeah, Devolver did publish it. And it's got a decent ratio. But sorry, it took me 3 hours and 40 minutes to do. So
Hmm.
yeah, people will smash through it. But I hope more people would play it because it's a really beautiful game. It's also on sale for like 75% off if you just want to buy it as well.
Yeah.
All right, what about you? Care anything else?
So there's a couple of things that I'm continuing to play. Like I said, I mentioned Space Marine before. We're moving on to the DLC Horde mode for that. We've done a little bit of just playing around to see what it's like. So it's not really worth mentioning because the mode's not really great. So I
It's
mean, I
really
don't really
not.
like it. So and like you can have what 3 or 4 people, and it's just a horde mode. And I hated horde modes back when these things come out. Like Gears 2 was my favorite
That was
horde.
the original one. Yeah.
Yeah, when they introduced the horde mode, it's great. Go in, smash some enemies, whatever. As soon as Gears 3, and I'm gonna get slammed for this, as soon as Gears 3 come about, and they started putting things where you had to put turrets down and fences up, and I'm like, no, I'm out. I don't want to tacticalize this in any kind of way. I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want tactics with this. I just want to
I'm
go in and
a
go through the waves.
100% agree. I think like because the
So
only it started a whole wave of these things when Gears 2 came out. Like you had like
yes.
ODST had Firefight.
Yep.
You had like this DLC mode.
Yep. It's the
And
reason I never played Call of Duty Zombies.
yeah,
And I have recently, I've said before, gone back and played Call of Duty Zombies, and I love it now. So, and
yeah,
I missed it when it was around, and I just never played it because of all this bullshit. So, but yeah, so, but yeah, it's very, very straightforward. But yeah, other than that, still doing Charlie Murder.
hmm
Actually, I was playing it earlier today. I finished the second difficulty. So going from the base game difficulty in Charlie Murder and going into the second difficulty, you like get dropped in like this digital panel thing, and you can kind of choose the normal difficulty and go back and replay levels, or go into the second difficulty or the third if you've unlocked it. As soon as you go into that second portal to start the game again, you have to finish that first level
yeah,
before you can equip stuff, because you just get smashed by enemies, and you're not equipped to deal with the difficulty spike going into that second difficulty.
yeah.
By the time I got about a third in, I started to really get some gear, and it was just on. I was just loving like playing it normally again. You're just going and doing everything. By the end of that difficulty, which I finished earlier today, you actually get like I was leveled up to like level 45 or something, and I got like relic 5, which
Mm.
was like one of the unlocks, and that meant you could put every single relic on. It was just stacks on stacks on stacks of damage. So going into the third difficulty, I'm just smashing through it now, and all I have to do is get to the end of that story the third time,
hmm
and I'll be fine. And I finally got the RNG drop for I think it was the Pestilence Vial was the last thing I needed in that, because you have to collect like 54 relics, and
hmm
it's all RNG except for there's like 23 or so in the environment. You have to pull out your phone. You have to pull out your Windows phone and scan the environment and
Oh
take
my
different
God. Yeah, forgot about that.
pictures in the environment and stuff like that. And then you have to basically fight enemies until everything else drops. And it wasn't until, because I spent a lot of time in the original difficulty just smashing it out, trying to just defeat the same enemies over and over again. And I spent a few hours just trying to get that one vial so I can move on with my life and just do the difficulties. And it wasn't until I got into the second level, the graveyard, or so the third level of the third difficulty, that the Pestilence Vial actually dropped. So I got that finally today. And now I just need to do
Fantastic.
the story. So yeah.
Yeah, I
Mm.
swear you'll be done with that by the end of the week then.
I'll be done it. Oh, maybe even tonight. I don't know. If I can smash it out, then I can move on. So
Um,
yeah.
speaking of RNG, I have been playing Dredge, which it's a real shame Cameron isn't here this week because he would be so
Mhm.
happy. He's been pushing me to play this for a long time. It
Yeah.
is essentially for those who don't know, you are a fisherman who washes up on the shore, and the mayor of a town nearby puts you to work and says, "Hey, we'll give you a new boat, but you need to pay off your debt. Go find some fish for us." And that kind of expands out from there as you kind of go around this archipelago of islands that all have kind of different themes, catching different types of fish, but also looking for like salvage and dredging and like treasure and things like that. While also, you've been given a task to collect 5 Cthulhu, mind-bending artifacts for a
Mm.
ritual of some sort, basically. And so each of the locations has an artifact that you need to go and find. But also there's a time mechanic where you don't want to be out in the waters after dark because things get really bad. I will not spoil some of the things, but I'll say there are things like when you're at night when you're driving, you have like an eye meter, and it gets like more paranoid and more crazy as time goes on in the dark, and you literally start seeing like in front of you, you'll just be going, and then suddenly a rock will literally just appear in front of you and you crash into it.
Oh,
It's a real fucking rock.
right.
But as soon as you turn away and turn back, it's gone. And then there are creatures in the dark. there are things that look like other boats out there, but when you get close, you realize they're giant anglerfish and things like that. Like it's fucking terrifying. So you do not want to be out after dark. So, but the whole thing is that like there's a loop of like you want to catch fish to sell it to earn money. You want to dredge things up to upgrade your boat, to like give yourself more slots because you have basically your kind of like Resident Evil style squares of whenever you fish something up, it's a certain shape. So you need to fit it into your inventory. So you want to get like a boat that has like a better light or more space or better better like rods or nets or crab pots or things like that, so you can catch different kinds of fish. I really, really enjoyed it. There is also a passive mode. So if you're like, hey, I'm kind of getting overwhelmed by all this like bullshit trying to kill me, I just want to do some fishing, you can just put it on passive mode and some of the scary stuff still shows up, but it doesn't like actively try to fuck you over most of the time. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I finished it. I was up quite late playing it last night, and it's really addictive. It has that kind of like, oh, but I was like, I've got this encyclopedia. I was like, okay, well, I've got these quests that I want to do. I was like, oh, I could go off to this volcano island over here, or I could go to the swampy area, or I could go to like the cliffs, or I could go to like the tropical island area, and they all have different kinds of fish, and some of them only come out at night, and also every fish has like an aberration version of it. So there's a chance whenever you catch a fish that it's going to be corrupted and weird. And those you need to basically get all of those. And the art is really, really good. And I quite like the story and the music, and like there's a lot going for it. Cameron says it's in his game of the year list. I don't know if it's going to be in mine. I think it's a really solid indie game. But I think it's like a solid 8. Like it's a good game. It's a little bit rough around the edges and it gets a little bit repetitive. And hunting down those last few fish kind of.
But if you say, oh, do you like shiny hunting in Pokemon?
Oh yeah, that's 100% that. Yeah, exactly. And it's and if you have any kind of interest in the kind of Cthulhu mythos, this is like right up your alley. So yeah, I definitely recommend it.
I do really need to play this, but I haven't got my hands on it yet. So, unfortunately, but that'll come in time. So
yeah, so I definitely recommend that. Anything else on your radar deck here?
Anybody watching the live feed will notice that I've kind of got this serene background going on at the moment. It's
Are you telling me you're not broadcasting from outside?
No, I'm not broadcasting from outside actually. So I'm
all right.
Finally showing off the green screen effect that I've been hiding from everybody for weeks that nobody's noticed. So I've been playing Call of the Wild Angler.
This just got added to Game Pass recently, right?
Yes, it got added to Game Pass because Starfield didn't have fishing.
Right, that's right. Yes, okay, yes. It all makes sense.
Yes. So basically there is another Call of the Wild game. I don't know if that's still on Game Pass or if it's been on Game Pass in the past.
Anymore, it was.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Basically they've made a fishing version of that. And I generally like testing out the fishing in games, and I've been tempted by a couple of the really, really big, hard, difficult fishing games that take 3,000 hours to play just to try them. But so basically this is in first person, and you get a little tutorial, and then it tells you that if you sign up to the account for the company that it's made by, you can actually go online. You get automatically, after the tutorial, lumped into a group of other people fishing.
Oh.
So it's like a live space with people fishing, which I haven't tried yet because I didn't bother making an account. So I'm kind of just running around by myself, but it's like a live world where you can kind of go and you're fishing with other people around you, like in these campgrounds and stuff like that. So it basically plays like a Far Cry game, really.
Interesting.
So you get, you can find, I mean, Far Cry obviously has fishing in
Far Cry 5
or 3 of the games now. So basically you have towers littered around and you can go to the towers. I'm actually sitting in a tower at the moment overlooking the lake, and it's actually got it shows you where the nearest like 2 or 3 towers are. So it puts a big question mark there, and you can go to those. So basically how in normal fishing games, well, in not normal fishing games, in normal video game fishing games, they have like the reel in function, and then you kind of like veer your joystick wildly left and wildly right just to pull the tension on and to reel the fish in. This one has just like the D-pad, and you can put more tension on and release tension
Oh,
without so it's not letting more line out or reeling it in. It's kind of like putting the tension on and taking the tension off.
right. You're
So
trying
I
to wear the
have
fish out. Yeah.
instinctively playing the fish game like every other fishing game, just swung my joystick in like one direction, and the camera's just done that first person shooter thing where it just veers wildly to one side, and I'm just like, wait, why am I facing the opposite direction? And the rod's still, the line's still going the direction it is. It doesn't really help. So, but yeah, so I'm still getting used to it. But I've only really done a couple of hours of it. And one of the things I did was actually just jump in a Jeep and then just bush bashed right up a mountain and then just went straight down the mountain. So you've got a lot of flexibility. You can go out on boats. You can fish on the boats. You can take the Jeeps up into the terrain and just go wildly off road and go different paths and all that kind of stuff. So I was just going slowly up rocks the whole time and trying to get on top of this waterfall. It was actually really nice. It's kind of like a really nice, serene kind of game with a little bit
Mm.
of extra stuff. But yeah, so you can get objectives like you'll find random plants that aren't native to the area and they're like pests, and you
Oh,
you
right.
you point them out to the guy back at the main area, and he's like, oh wait, thanks for finding that, because we're trying to get rid of these plants that are inhabiting these areas where we don't really want them. And you just have to find 26 different plants,
This is a lot to this
plant
game. A lot more than I was
plant
expecting.
types. Yeah, and like you do have other things, like there is a missing poster there for like a cat. It says missing cat, and I'm like, maybe there's just going to be a random cat here somewhere. I have to go find this cat, and it
You got
looks
to
like
put some
there's
fish out for it, and it shows up.
yeah. Yeah, and there's a few different maps and stuff like that as well. So it looks like it's going to be a bit of a big game, but I'm pretty sure you can do all the achievements offline. So, but yeah, so it's just going to be fun if you can get a couple of friends just to kind of jump in and just play with them. But I know you don't want to start it, so
Not particularly, but I am keen to hear more about it because
yeah,
it does
maybe
sound like
Cameron will start with me. We can do some fishing.
yeah, he doesn't care about his fucking completion.
Yeah,
He'll get on it.
no, that's through the
Uh,
floor. So
yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about the big one. Again, it's a real shame Cameron isn't here. Because I know he kind of weighed in on it a little bit last week. Starfield. We've both been playing it. How far are you into it, Keo?
So I'm only really a couple of hours into this one as well. So I've been doing a lot of uni work over the last couple of weeks. So it's just like these big games are coming out, and I can't even touch them. Um, but to start off, I went as far the first time I played, I went as far as doing the first little intro bit and then going up in the ship, and then that was it, into space. And then I'm kind of like, you have a little battle, and then the next time I did the Crete stuff where you kind of go down to the first planet and then go from there to the other Atlantis and stuff. And I basically logged out at that first major city because I was trying to sell all my stuff and couldn't find where to sell everything. And then when I tried to sell everything, I was over encumbered the whole time, right?
Yep.
Which
Yep.
is the big thing
That's
with
yeah.
this. So and then just tried to sell stuff. The vendor had run out of money, so I'm like, oh, is there another vendor? I don't actually know. I can't tell if there's another vendor in this map or not. So, but I find like the people are kind of down on the walkout moment that you get with the game.
Hmm.
But I think the walkout, like, it's not a moment. It was like it was a moment. It was like an instance where I think the main thing is when the ship first comes down, when you walk out and the ship just descends and lands on the platform. I feel like that was supposed to be the moment.
Yeah.
It's like oh, there's more to this than
It's the vault
just
opening. It's the
yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
So
it's the
so
getting out of the cave for the
yeah,
first time in Skyrim for
it
sure.
doesn't matter about the first 20 minutes where you've got a laser gun and you're shooting rocks and stuff like that. It was really just this watching this ship descend, and then it was really mediocre the way you took that ship, actually. That was really disappointing. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, here, just take this ship and go here. And I'm like, okay. So, and I didn't know the ship was called Constellation.
What
I'm like,
the
it's
ship I believe is
oh,
called the Discovery. The Constellation is the name.
Discovery.
Yeah.
And Yeah, and the Constellation is the name of
The organization.
the organization. Yeah, so I'm just like, there's something going on here. It is like I was saying, is the ship called Constellation or is it? Yeah, so, but yeah, how far are you through?
So I'm about 15 or so hours in.
Okay,
I'd been talking with this Cameron with this sorry, I've been talking
with
about
this
this with
Cameron.
I've
Yeah.
been talking about this with Cameron around like, should I start it? Do I want to get into
Mhm,
it right now? Because there are a lot of other games I want to be playing. Like I just finished Sea of Stars, which was
mhm.
quite a time investment, and I really enjoyed it. Did I want to really jump onto Starfield, which was it's getting good reviews, but it's not getting amazing reviews in a lot of places.
Mm.
Um, Not to say that it's a bad game, but there's been a lot of criticism of certain elements of the game, especially around the sort of traveling and other bits and bits at the start. Um, I like this game. So I'm
Mm.
only 15 hours in, which for a game like this is fucking nothing.
Mhm.
I'm probably like next week I'll probably have a more fully formed opinion. I'm going to try at least get to the end of the. I'm going to try and at least get to the end of the main story this weekend, and probably there's four. I know there's four factions in the same way there always are to do, and I know that that's like the bulk of the story content. So if I get to the end of all of that, I think I'll have a pretty good handle on the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I like this game. I don't love it.
I am in the same boat with that actually. It's just like I haven't played a Bethesda game since Skyrim.
Right. Right.
And like I don't care about the bugs or whatever,
Yeah.
and like the things that the mod community have done to this game since it has been released
Yeah.
has been like has made the game so much better.
Mm.
Like inventory management, like
Yeah.
just mm,
It this is a Bethesda ass fucking game. Like this game, like if I just handed this to someone who had played any Fallout or Skyrim or Morrowind or Oblivion, they'd be like, "Oh, Bethesda made this game, right?" And I'd be like, "Yes,
mhm,
absolutely,
mhm,
you
mm,
got it." From the UI to how it plays, but it runs into a lot of those same pitfalls. The inventory management, as you pointed out, is fucking awful.
mm.
The map system, there are no maps in the actual areas. When you get to the areas,
Yes.
there are no map, which is insane. The fact that there are no
Yeah.
maps, and fast traveling is bad. It's just like the galactic map that you use is a three-dimensional map that is really unhelpful and
All right.
unclear to use.
Have you been in your ship in space and been over encumbered and it telling you can't fast travel?
Can't fast travel? Yeah, there are ways around that, but yes,
Yeah.
like that's a big problem.
Yeah.
That's yeah. The first thing it is, I put 4 points as soon as I got them into weightlifting to give
Mhm.
myself the extra 100 kg. So helpful.
Mm. What did you choose? What were your perks and stuff?
I chose bounty hunter as my background.
Okay.
And I chose the adoring fan because
Nice.
that's just funny.
Yep, I did that too.
I chose extrovert because I knew I was always going to have companions with me.
All right. Mm-hmm.
Normally I would have chosen introvert, but extrovert's more useful.
Yeah.
And then I chose, I think I chose raised enlightened to get there's like a treasure chest. There's like a chest of stuff that like early game in New Atlantis that gives you just like a nice little boost to start with.
Right. Okay. Cool.
All the other ones, I think if I was going to pick again, I probably would have picked like the parents one that Cameron was talking about. That
Mhm.
one seemed like a lot more fun.
Yeah.
You do have to like send in like 2% of your income or whatever, but like that's fuck all. Yeah, the game has a lot of problems that I thought had already been solved, right? Like the
Right.
thing about like trying to find vendors because there's no maps. Like trying
Mhm.
to find vendors in New Atlantis is a nightmare. Like there's that
Mhm.
trade terminal at the beginning of whenever you land most places, but that place only
Mhm.
has like 5,000 credits. If you want to
Yep.
go buy, and that's only for selling stuff. If you want to buy something, you got to go find a store,
Yep.
and you can't fast travel to stores. The stores aren't really well labeled. There's no map to look at, so you kind
Yep.
of just have to stumble around and use the
Yep.
in-game
So
signage.
you don't even know what kind of stores are there.
Yeah,
Like what
yeah.
exists. You have to go and look at everything, and it's so spread out. Like it's almost like it's artificially spread out. Like the map doesn't have to be so big.
Exactly, and
Mm.
artificially spread out, I think is the way I feel about this game in general. They could have quite easily put this into a flat galactic map and just put a bunch of systems and just been like, these are the systems and that's it. But because they had to do their 1,000 planet thing, is that you have to go to so many systems with so many planets. And I kind of understand it, right? But the games I kind of compare this to, you've got kind of, I guess, Fallout 4 is probably the closest comparison, right? Because it's the last kind of big game that they released.
Right, of course.
And there's a lot of DNA of that game in this. And on the other end, I kind of have like Mass Effect, right? Which I think is probably the closest contemporary in terms of a like space flight, like space combat game with like companions and dialogue, and like, you know, it's not just like a Doom game, but it's like, you know, like this kind of things. Like you go from planet to planet, you play as a human, you create your own character, you kind of make decisions. There's RPG mechanics. Like there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
Obviously they play quite differently, but there's a lot of shared DNA. And there are so many things that the Mass Effect trilogy got right that I was like, you should have just stolen it. It's like you should have just done a flat galactic map. You should have just made 20 systems with set planets on them. You don't need to have all the procedural generated stuff. You're not gaining anything from that. Because the other thing that it's close to is like people are comparing it with like No Man's Sky. Right?
Yeah.
Which it does not come like in that department. I mean, No Man's Sky, you know, released in a fucking terrible state.
Yeah.
Like, but obviously is in a totally different area now. But even in the narrative for that game is quite light for the most part. There is kind of the Atlas stuff, but it's not like, you know, they it's very clear they added it later. Whereas the narrative and the exploration and kind of the designed element of this game is really the best part of it. And unfortunately, you know, and obviously, you know, there's that whole thing around like, oh, you know, you explore in a game like Fallout or Skyrim and you find new interesting stuff. And sometimes it's procedurally generated, sometimes it's not. The curated stuff, though, is, you know, the stories they tell, the characters, the relationships. Like that's what I'm there for. That's why I like Mass Effect. That's why I like Dragon Age. That's why I like these kinds of games. That's the best part of this game. And they muddy it with a lot of extra shit that doesn't add anything to the game. You like the Outpost stuff is really underbaked and just kind of not.
I haven't seen that yet, actually. I don't think
that's the thing, is that like I've done a little bit of it, but it doesn't really feel like there's much point to it. Outside of the fact that, well, they did this in No Man's Sky and people like the idea of going to a planet and building out their own thing, but like,
yeah, I in Fallout 3, I did that thing where you choose every single dialogue option of every single person because you want to see what they want to
happens.
say.
Yeah.
All I'm doing is base level, like choosing my options and not even trying any harder than that with the characters.
Yeah.
Really. So I haven't seen any really engaging conversations yet. But yeah, so I'm not really sure. But yeah, there's so much DNA from the other games in this. Well, to the point where like I was listening to like another creator, Mr. Matty plays this big, huge Bethesda shill. He's like talking about legacy bugs because the system is exactly the same. It's built on the other games.
Yeah.
That there's a term for the bugs in the game, and it's not bug Thesda. They're legacy bugs from other games that weren't fixed, that were known problems that were fixed from mods that fixed those games, that made it into the base game of this, that will then be fixed once again by the modders fixing the game.
Yeah. And
so
I think performance-wise, at least on the Xbox, it's worked relatively well. Like I haven't had a lot of technical issues. I've had a couple of like infinite loading screens that I've had to reset from, but the autosave system is pretty good. The quick save is good. Like the load screens take too long, straight up.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But that's always been a Bethesda problem.
Yeah, there's a new patch, I think today or yesterday or tomorrow or something. Whenever they get that out, people are getting it now. That is supposed to fix a lot of the quests that break.
Yeah, there's a main story quest. I was quite lucky in that I didn't have any problems with them. Actually, the ones they mentioned are the ones I just finished.
Well, actually, I have a mission chain at the start of the game, and it's the one where you meet what's her name, the first girl, Sarah. Haven't learned anyone's names yet. And all the boxes are ticked, but the quest is just sitting there. And I'm like, is it supposed to continue, or is it supposed to check off and go into the completed tab? There's no more objectives on this thing. And I realized scrolling down that there was like 30 different objectives in this one quest, and they were all ticked, but it wasn't going anywhere. There was no next step. I didn't know if I
Yeah.
had to complete other things to come back to it, and then there'd be a next step. So,
Yeah, yeah. So there's definitely some technical issues. I think overall it plays pretty well. I'm pretty happy
yep.
with like the gunplay.
Yes.
I got myself like a nice medium range ballistic
Mhm.
rifle with a scope on it that fucking just rips through people, and I'm
Yeah,
loving it.
I really like the combat. I am basically no scoping pistols because it just hits the enemies
Yeah,
generally, and like you don't try to zoom in with a pistol because it that's not great.
yeah.
But most of the other weapons are really good, and I chose Bouncer as the background. It
Oh
was
yeah.
like the fisticuffs because I just wanted to see what the melee and stuff was like and really build up those skills. Funny enough, I chose Bouncer, and then one of my traits was Serpent's Embrace, which is actually you
Oh
have to bounce
yeah. You got to
to get
bounce. Yep.
oxygen. So I'm just bouncing all over the place, and I realized that that doesn't really work in the city areas
No.
or anything. It's when you're in space, you can watch you get your oxygen back. So I thought maybe if I could be asked doing anything with the ships, make like a bouncy castle ship or something.
That would be fucking hilarious.
So maybe I just need some credits and stuff and try to build some pieces or whatever. So
Yeah, yeah. That this
mm,
like I won't get into spoilers, right?
yeah.
But the main conceit of this game is that you are collecting these artifacts that you found
Hmm.
to try and figure out what they because they react to each other. You're trying to figure out what
Mm,
they're doing, and that's pretty much it, right?
yeah.
This I'm kind of I think I'm kind of just getting out of the slow start thing that people are talking about. Obviously, people are a little bit tight-lipped around like what that exactly means because they don't want to spoil things. Um, my main issue, and I'm just talking about story here, like gameplay wise, I think is fine. I have like again,
Mm,
we talked about technical stuff. I'm just talking about the narrative driving push, which, as people will know, is kind of the main reason I play games.
hmm
Um, there's a real lack of urgency or stakes or anything interesting when this game starts.
Okay.
You join this, you join Constellation, and they're like, yeah, collect these things, and I'm kind of like, or and they're like, well, it's a Bethesda game, so like, or whatever, go do whatever you want. I'm like, okay, but like, this is the main quest. Like, give me a reason. Like it doesn't always have to be, oh, the world will end if you don't do this thing, but like, I need a bit more of a hook, and there just
Mm,
really isn't one until I got to one of like a couple of quests that I kind of got to like about 10 hours in,
mm.
and it was like, oh, okay, now things are maybe a little bit different. Maybe okay. I was like, I'm starting to see there might be something going on here. I was like, okay, well, maybe there is some urgency, or maybe we need to do this, or we've discovered this thing that kind of changes things a little bit. But it's still quite light. I'm still like, okay, I still feel like I'm the one trying to push for this thing.
There was a piece of dialogue that Sarah had with me at the start that was just after you know, uh, basically interacted with him for the first time, and they're
Yeah,
like, right, I'm gonna go to space and find these things. You can go and do it too if you want. And I'm like, aren't I the hero? Isn't that what I do?
yeah,
And you come with me? But she's like, I'm just gonna go do these things, so you can come if you
yeah.
want. I'm just like, well, you're coming with me.
Yeah, and then it was like, oh, we need to go to this place and mine this thing or find this, and I'm like, okay, all right, I guess so. And it's like, oh, you collected one. I'm like, okay, and it's just kind of like I don't know. We like the ones that I've collected, and there are a lot of them. The ones I've collected haven't really had any real narrative beats to them. It's been like, oh, you go to a location, you shoot your way through, or explore it to find the thing, or solve the puzzle. Actually, I don't even think there have been any real puzzles recently. It's basically been like sneak your way through, shoot your way through,
Mm,
find your way to the thing, pull it out, see the vision thing, and then do it again. And there hasn't really been like a, oh, actually, that's not true. There was one where it was like, hey, this person has one, and you kind of need to go track him down. And I was like, oh,
oh,
okay, like okay.
okay.
He's like, okay, well, he was in the Sol system, so you need to go like go to Mars to try and find him because he works there. And so you go there and you kind of got to follow the dots to try and figure out what happened to him
Mm,
to get this artifact. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. That's kind of interesting. I'm interested to see kind of where these artifacts have landed because they've been around for a while. Most of them are still in the ground, like you dig them up, and so there isn't really any.
right.
You don't talk to anyone. You don't. There's no dialogue options. There's no story choices. You just kind of have to get into a shootout or just kind of walk your way to wherever they are. Um, I think that yeah, and then I did another mission where I was like, okay, someone has the artifact. We need to get the artifact.
Mm,
And I'm like, oh, okay, here's like an interesting kind of, again, I don't want to
yeah,
spoil it, right?
I've seen one of those. Yeah, I did
So
at least one of them.
So I'm hoping there's more of that, but I'm worried that there isn't going to be a lot of it. But I don't know. Like I've encountered like a thing, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Not what I expected from this game. That's okay, cool. I'm curious to learn more about it, but I'm also like, the game is so open with you just being like, but you could just fuck off and go do something else if you want. I'm like, yes, I know that, but I want like you need to give me a reason to do this.
That was another Sarah thing. So, uh, it gave me the option because the dialogue choices were like, yeah, go straight to the objective, and the other dialogue was, oh, I just want to go see the moon.
Yeah,
And it's like, and then Sarah said, oh, I wouldn't mind, I don't care if there's really a detour or anything. It's not super urgent. It's like,
that's exactly what I mean. Is I was like, there
yeah,
should like
yeah,
the fact that there's no urgency, like I understand from a
mm,
gameplay mechanic wise, is to give you an out so you don't feel like you're constrained to have to do the main story, because some
yeah,
people are going to be like, I don't want to do anything to do with the main story.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, you kind of understand the characters are like, oh, we don't know why we're finding these.
Yeah, exactly. And
So
which
let's
is
just go
again,
find more.
yeah. And it's like, I
So,
don't,
mm,
and I think the idea is it's supposed to be like the mystery is supposed to be the thing. It's like, oh, what do they mean? I'm like, well, no one really seems to care all that much. They're just kind of collecting these things.
yeah,
It hasn't really had much of an impact yet.
mm.
But I feel like I might be on the cusp of
Yeah,
like the
where
turning point where it
this
becomes
is
more of a
two
thing.
people that are very, very
Yeah,
well, we're at the start of the game. I haven't seen any of the powers or anything like that they've
yeah,
shown in
exactly.
videos or anything. So yeah, so
Yeah. And David points out that he's heard that the side quests are more interesting than the main storyline. Yeah, that's kind of also what I'm like interested in. I definitely want to do the main storyline first because I want to make sure that I get all the stuff out of it first. But I'm very curious. I've heard the Crimson Fleet stuff is really interesting. And then you can kind of play with the other two factions. And I think there's a third. I think there's like 4 sort of factions that you can kind of work with.
right. So they had, wasn't it like Crimson Raiders in Skyrim or something, or Oblivion or whatever? Isn't that one of the factions in?
Something like that. Yeah, I can't remember what it was called, but I know what you
Yeah.
mean.
So it's just like, where is the creativity if that's what the level they've kind of gone to? So,
Yeah, I
I
don't
mean,
know.
like, unless this is, in the same world, but
Well, I mean,
yeah,
wouldn't be, that there
yeah.
is a possibility, right?
Mm,
Um, but yeah, David points out, yeah, that there's 4 factions. I think it was you have the UC, which are the people who run New Atlantis, which is just kind of like the futuristic Marines.
mm.
You've got the Freestar Rangers, which is kind of like their Western, like Firefly influenced, cowboy thing.
Yeah, nice,
Which is
nice.
kind of those are the 2 warring factions that are now kind of have a peace treaty. So you can kind of work for both of them. You have the Crimson Fleet, which are the Raiders from the start of the game. And then I think there's one other, which is in like the crime city in Neon, which is like you do like underground, like kind of like Yakuza-esque kind of sneaky shit.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there was the cult of the Serpent's Embrace that I came across as well in
Yes, yeah, the
missions.
Varun, yeah, which
So,
is so like there's a lot of interesting stuff in there, and I definitely want to
mm,
play more of it to get into that.
yeah.
But I've just like the way I play games is I'll mainline the story first because I want to figure out what's going on.
Yeah,
Um,
this is going to be one that I think I will be because I'm like I want to push through this story because if I don't, I won't. So kind of deal. So
yeah, exactly, and I kind of and for the very least for game of the year discussion, I kind of wanted the narrative is probably going to be the
mm,
big thing for me, because I don't really feel like the gameplay is going to change all that much.
no,
Um,
no, I don't think it's going to be. I don't because they said they're going to support this for years and years, right?
yeah, but the first DLC isn't going to come out for like another like they said like 6 months.
Yeah,
So
and what is support? Is it updates, fixes,
yeah,
expansions?
they've talked about adding mod support early next year for like
Yeah,
extended mod support and stuff, which is
yeah.
great. That's good. But yeah,
Yeah, and if that's the extent, if mod support is the extent, and we're not going to see like transactions or anything like that out, maybe they'll have the mod creator thing where they were selling mods.
yeah, maybe, but I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't want people to think I think this is a bad game.
Oh no,
I think
it's solid.
it's a solid game. Like this is like a
Yeah,
solid 8.
I
Like
love
it's
the
good.
combat. I
Yeah,
love the space flight when you're in space.
yeah,
But when you're in space, like you're just really just in that spot. You
yeah,
don't do anything except for fight the things around you. As far as I'm aware, I don't know
yeah.
yet.
Pretty much. Yeah,
So,
it's like either fight the things around you or
yeah.
jump to either
So,
one of the
yeah.
planets in the system or to another system. And that's it.
Yeah. So you're just in the instance, you're in space, you do space things, you go.
Yeah,
So, but yeah. So,
is
mm,
what it is. But yes, I'll have more of a report next week. I'm probably gonna blitz it this weekend. I also, but the thing is, I also just got Armored Core 6 sitting there installed, and I'm like, oh, I
Right.
really want to fucking play that. But I know if I start that,
Mm.
I'm never going to get back to Starfield. So we'll see. I might play. I might play a little bit of both. We'll see how it goes. And when I get pissed off at how difficult Armored Core is, I'll go back to Starfield for a bit. We'll see. But I didn't start it because I didn't really want to jump onto it straight away. But we'll probably talk more about it next week. But yeah, that's me. Is there anything else you want to touch on?
Not so much, except like I did happen to go back to UFC 09 actually, just for just for the achievement hunters out there. There was a period where we thought it was going to be open for like 2 weeks, where basically the true skill servers went down or had like a malfunction, or it happens every few years or so. And there was a lot of buzz about this one achievement from UFC 09 actually functioning again.
Which is
So,
nuts.
and apparently since then, because you had to go online and get the 5 gold medals, which is basically do 10 matches in a row and get a one-hit KO and stuff like that. But people are already reporting that it's now no longer working, and it's basically the indicator is if you can see the leaderboards working in the game or something, then you know the leaderboard's working, true skills working, then it's just not working. So there was something to do with
Right.
THQ's old systems that, yeah. But that's the only other thing that I've been doing, and basically, any kind of FYI, you've got a week to do this thing because there was going to be like a 2-week period maybe where that could work. Apparently, it might not now. So
Who knows? It might come back. Never
well,
say
we just
never,
need
right?
things to break again, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly. I mean, hey, I'm still waiting for Forza Motorsport 2 to come back. I just need that one achievement. Ugh.
yeah, the auction house.
Yeah, the auction house one. Yeah.
All right.
Ugh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Back when I played all of the game when yeah.
yeah.
So with a steering wheel, man.
Oh yeah.
I played Forza 2, 3, and 4 all with a wheel on my 360, and that thing is just gone. I can't use it now. So,
Yeah, doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
man.
All right. I'll just quickly go through the leaderboard. In third place, we've got Mephisto for the win with 6,395 for this week. Red 47 with 12,270. And Martel in first place with 25,140, which again is another insane number. Just that man is completing so many games. If you want to join our leaderboard, let us know. We can send you an invite, hook you up, get you on there. And if you're putting up some score, maybe you'll end up in the top 3.
Yep.
Do you want to go through our completions?
Yes. So lots of stuff this week actually. Game Pass leaving and stuff like that. Shadow Sly finished Crisis 3. Aftos finished Dune Spice Wars. And Metal Hellsinger. The Moonzom finished Beyond Good and Evil HD just in time for them to announce the remake. Bottle of Sharks, Forza Horizon 5. Legacy finished Forza Horizon 5 as well. So yeah, that's something that you need to go back into.
Yes, I've still got it installed. It's taking up
So
130 gigs of my hard drive, so I need to get it
yes,
done.
yeah. I'm actually working on Forza Motorsport 6 at the moment, trying to get that done before that, because the next big Xbox game is Forza.
Yeah, in October, yeah.
So, Jack Graff finished DC Super Pets and Descenders. Descenders is massive,
crazy.
So because that has a lot of RNG stuff and as well.
It's
just
got like a 16 ratio or something ridiculous.
Yeah. Have you played that at all?
No, I remember seeing it when it first came out, and I was like, oh, this looks cool. I'm never going to play it.
There's one that I've been trying to do in that game, and it's basically you have to go through all the levels in each zone, and there's like you have to get through all 4 areas, and you have to do a whole bunch of levels in each area, get to the final boss level, and which is basically like this another like you flip over a train or something like that, and and then that's it. You have to actually do the jump, and if you don't do the jump, you fail it. But I can only get into the second area, and I haven't even done all of the levels in that area to progress to the third area, and it's like downhill. It's a menace through the trees. It's really, really bad. So that is solid. Rapture finished Street Fighter 6. That's the first time I've seen, I think, one of those completions on. Yeah, and Exo Primer as well, so a couple of new really good ones. Shane finished Port Royal 3 and Metal Hellsinger. Chin Doctor did Army of Ruin. Mikhail KV did AC Valhalla base game, so it's not a DLC or anything like that. So that's really mammoth effort.
Yeah, I think his playtime was like several days. Like it
Yeah,
looked like a
yeah.
lot.
Yeah. Zenimus finished Citizen Sleeper, so that's Zach, and K791998, or is that K791998 finished Modern Warfare Remastered, which that one was causing a bit of a pest because they were trying to get the Mile High Club, I believe.
Classic. Yeah.
So,
That's
yeah.
classic difficult achievement back in the day. Nowadays is a lot easier once you kind of know it, but I remember spending a lot of hours on that.
Yeah, I need to do the PC version of that. So,
Oh yeah, true.
then that's it. That's it. That's completions.
Yeah, I've been meaning to ask Zach about the about Citizen Sleeper, and because I
You
started
did
it.
ping at him, but I don't think he's
I think he
replied.
said
He's normally here in the chat, so
he's normally here. I think he said it was really easy, which I was like, oh, okay, interesting, because I tried it and like got super confused very, very quickly. So I don't know. I might try and find a walkthrough or something, because I know the game's literally dice rolls. So be curious to see kind of
right
how that goes, because I imagine it's probably going to be on the chopping block at some stage. I will quickly talk about the word challenge, everyone's favorite competition. Last week, Mace J won it with Child of Light, so congratulations to him. So I sent him his code. This one, I haven't decided if I'm going to do a code yet or not. We'll figure it out. I'll either give you a code or the value of the game if you figure out what it is. But I have got a new one in there. If you don't know what the word challenge is, basically I come up with a game every month or so, and put the name of it into our bot with a GIF, and we have a channel on our Discord where if you fill in the name correctly, it has to be capitals and everything, just copy and paste it because it's finicky. It has to be an exact match. It will pop up the GIF and you win the prize, which is usually a code for the game or for some money. So every week I come up with a clue. The clues range from completely unhelpful to basically giving you the answer if you listen to the podcast early enough. So we're starting again at the top. And this clue is this game has books in it.
Love me some books.
Yep, books. It's got books in it. That could be background books in an inventory, like a library. Could be a book that you use. Could be a book that's just like a.
It could be a weapon. Maybe
could be exactly. Yeah, exactly. Could be a weapon. Could just be an aesthetic book. Just it's got books in it. Good luck. So David is very amused by that. Yeah. So David, start guessing, mate. Get people in there. You get one guess per hour, so go wild.
Yeah, and don't guess the witness.
Yeah,
or we'll throw the book at you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I'll just give a big shout out to our Patreons, patreon.com/HallofGamers, the people who help pay for the show, support it so we can actually keep it running. They pay for things like server uploads for all of the audio versions of the podcast. They help pay for Zoom. They help pay for the competitions. They help pay for equipment when things break. So we really appreciate all our patrons. So a huge thank you to Lee Howard, Mikhail KV, Natolinator, Mad Lefty, Admiral Awesome, Happy Moogles, Kung Fu Skills, Hackimpone, Cavaliers07, Old Mate Clown, Mark B, McLovin Legend, and our brand new Patreon, Mr. Mace J, the winner of the word challenge last week, has decided to grace us with his presence. We greatly appreciate you supporting the show. We literally could not afford to do it without you guys, so thank you. And I guess it's kind of going to bring us towards the end. I mean, as always, we do this show live on Twitch. We're interacting with our audience. Oh, here's Mace J. He's in the chat.
Hey.
Speaking of the devil. So yeah, Xbox Hall of Gamers is the place to find us. We do the show live, usually on Fridays or Saturdays. So come hang out, post in the chat, say hi, ask questions, respond to things. We try to interact with you guys as much as possible without going too overboard. So yeah, definitely come and do that. We appreciate all the support. All right, Keo.
Yes.
You're a streamer. You do things every now and then. What have you got on the go?
Yes, so I haven't actually got anything on the go at the moment because I'm in the middle of my uni stuff. So maybe when I get past some of that. But basically, you can catch me at Keo Live at Home on Twitch, and you can catch the notifications for that on Twitter at Keo Live at Home as well. And if you want to catch the VODs for anything I do and some past stuff, including a couple of guides I've got up, you can go to YouTube at HTFG Play. That's it.
Fantastic. And as always, I'm Neomaster on everything, True Achievements, Xbox, and Discord. You know, the usual if you want to find us. We did have a Discord link, but IO got hacked. So just ask us if you want to get on the Discord. We'll sort it out. I mean, you know, like most of the people listening are on the Discord already. So I'm preaching to the choir here. But the Discord is great. We have, you know, word challenge and questions and all that kind of stuff in there. So go say hi. But that's going to bring us to the end of episode 94. We will catch you guys next week. See you later.
Thanks for joining. Have a good night.